through the 60s, there was a message that got put into us that we subscribed to. It was political, it was philosophical, and it was a spiritual ideology that we took in, we incorporated into us. And that message was not congruent with the messages that we had subscribed to, or the tenets we had subscribed to up until the 60s.
We had morals, high morals. We had standards, high standards. There were things that we just did not do as a community, as a group of people.
We have to hold our heads up, get an education, get economic independence on our own, not rely on handouts and welfare and the white man.
The tradition of black self-determination, belief in education, in holding our families together, of black men saying, you know what, we are men. We stand tall in the face of whatever kind of degradation you want to throw at us.
The way you were supposed to move, the way you were supposed to dress, the way there was a part of you that was supposed to be an American first and black second.
In some ways, I think we are the truest Americans, black men, because I think we have demonstrated a belief in the ideals, the principles of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, a belief in the law of the land and the freedoms, and we've been tested time and again.
We kept our pride and dignity in place. No matter what went on, from the water hoses, from Alabama to Mississippi, all the way through the South. Whatever happened, we kept saying, we will make it. We'll make this work for us, and we keep our heads high, and we'll walk down the street and say, you guys are wrong, and we're gonna show you we're wrong. And no matter what you do to us, doesn't matter, you guys are wrong.
Not only dignity, but respect for each other, things that were taught by our parents. And I think that is one of the reasons why so many of us have been successful.
Back in the 60s, America was not operating as America should have, meaning equality for all. And in order to change that, you're right, the black community as a whole had to have a higher moral standard to question a system of government that was operating immorally.
The Democrats controlled the Senate, the Congress, and the presidency for 80 years, and not one single piece of civil rights legislation was passed in 80 years. Now, wait a minute, what's going on here?
In 64, 65, the civil rights movement won its victories, and which were civil rights. We got Civil Rights Bill of 64, Voting Rights Act of 65. Together, they represent probably the greatest social legislation ever written anywhere in the world.
If you read some of the civil rights legislation, you think, wow, this is truly the great society. As it was written, it's just like every play is designed to score a touchdown. I mean, this one was designed to score some touchdowns.
In the sense of protecting the rights of an aggrieved minority. You cannot get legislation written more powerful, actually beautiful in a sense.
The victories of the civil rights, the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s were won through an adherence to and reference to the founding principles.
Somewhere along the civil rights movement, things got tipped over.
At the end of the civil rights era, and I submit that the civil rights, as was defined and fought for, ended in 64 at the signing of the act. 82%, 87%, 82% of the black households were two-parent married households. 40% of those households are business owners.
Following the civil rights victories of 64 and 65, what happened in the next 10 years that got us off track?
What has happened since 1964 until present day, November 8th, 2006?
Well, you know, before the civil rights movement, before the civil rights laws were passed on the books, 81% of American black households had a mother and a father. During the 60s, something changed. If it feels good, just do it. That you are the judge of your own morality. You make the choices that you want to make.
We talk about the greatness of America and American institutions, American idealism, American character. The retort is that all of that greatness is stained with a history of racism, bigotry, sexism, and oppression. And so they have no moral authority. They don't speak to us, and we now need to destroy them and rebuild them now without that stain. So what ends up happening is, and again, it's traditional American institutions. Out of that comes the free love, sexual revolution.
In the 60s and 70s, sex, drugs, and rock and roll were part of the rebellion against all authority. We challenged everything from the polite middle-class conventions to the most basic rules of conduct. And we didn't just question the rules that didn't make sense to us. We defied them.
To springboard and question anything in authority. It's almost like they questioned up into their parents. If you saw the smirk on the guy's face, they rejoiced in this. It was a chance for them to say that anything that was in a position of authority was wrong. North becomes south, top becomes bottom, left becomes right, east becomes west, but more importantly, right becomes wrong in their eyes. So they put themselves in this type of position by conjoining or lining themselves up with our questioning of America's morality.
So that's the Black Civil Rights Movement. We took it. We took it. But we lost that momentum when the larger Civil Rights Movement came in to dovetail with our Civil Rights Movement. Now,
the post-civil rights movement, which was not an embrace of those same institutions that had supported us through slavery, through Jim Crow, into the victories of the civil rights movement, suddenly we turn our back on them.
Basically, the baby boomers of the 1960s took the message of we and flipped it into me, me, me.
The Jerry Springer effect is a direct result of the 60s, the me, myself, and I generation. We're defined by our status in society, meaning our professional status, what kind of house we have, what kind of car we drive, what kind of trophy wife we have. The problem is that as a people, we miss is that we also elevate ourselves by denigrating others. Okay, a perfect example of that is we watch The Simpsons, we watch American Idol, we watch Jerry Springer. Bottom line, you see these idiots on TV, we feel better about ourselves.
See, this movie wasn't made to say that black men don't have some challenges. We do have some problems. I'm saying the picture's not as bleak as some would have you believe. And those that would have you believe the worst in us are profiting from it. And the time has come for us to regain what we were. So we have to get back to who we were by knowing who we are, and maybe hopefully we can reconnect with one another. Go find each other.